Welcome to episode 6. Today we're going to talk about water, one of the most important elements, and there's a lot of science that goes into water, so don't just think that you can put water on a plant. We're going to talk about a half a dozen different elements of the water. We're going to talk about the delivery system. We're going to talk about the quality of the water. There will be a lot that we can discuss that will help you become a successful hemp farmer.
So the first question is, do you need water and how much? And how does that different area of the country, how does that affect that?
Well, we come from an area in the West we probably get on average 13 inches of rainfall a year. Pretty arid. So we have to irrigate. We have to irrigate every single plant for its entire season. If we were so lucky to live in North Carolina, we would still have to irrigate, but the need would be so much less. We could rely on rainfall for so much of our water. We still want to have backup systems, but the differences in region specifically would impact how you water, why you water, what you water with.
Can you put too much on?
Absolutely.
How does that, how much is too much, or what happens when you do?
Well, so we talked a little bit in segment 5 about cover crop. If we have plastic, for example, as a cover, as a weed deterrent, and we live outside of Las Vegas, Nevada, we would like to use plastic in that case because it would maintain all the moisture in the soil. If we live in Tennessee, we don't want to have moisture in the soil around the root system all of the time. We want to give it a chance to breathe. The root system needs oxygen in order to grow. So if we impact that root system with too much water and it's not oxygenated water, that root system will suffer. It will get disease. The plant will cease to flourish.
So that's called the difference between anaerobic and aerobic, and water pushes the oxygen out of the soil, becomes anaerobic. What happens then to those roots?
So plants are interesting. We were taught in the 5th grade that the plants produce oxygen. They use CO2 and they produce oxygen, which humans are different because we use oxygen and then our waste product is the CO2. So in a perfect world, plants and animals balance. What they didn't tell you is that the plant root system needs oxygen. So some way we've got to figure a way to get oxygen to the root system.
Or stop if there's too much water, then that pushes the oxygen out. So
right. Unless we can find a way to oxygenate the water. So there are several things that happen to a plant when we give its root system oxygen. In our laboratory growing conditions, we have proven that we can get 17% better growth by oxygenating the root system. So you're right. If we continue to pound the root system with stale, unoxygenated water, the plant will suffer. If we allow it to breathe and replenish its oxygen supply, or if we can somehow introduce oxygen into the root system, that plant will thrive.
one of the other issues I think that we need to be concerned about is if there's too much water, that inhibits the biological activity that feeds that and helps to oxygenate the root system. So there's a lot of reasons not to have too much water.
Well, I think it's because as we were learning about this, as we were growing up, if a plant didn't look right, the answer was always let's water it. And that might be right 10% of the time. If a plant doesn't look right, then let's solve the problem. Let's figure out if it's a nutrient deficiency. Let's figure out if it's overwatering or underwatering. There are several things that can be wrong. We've talked several times about the importance of tissue sampling. We have to go out on a weekly basis and take tissue samples, send them to a laboratory, have them analyzed. And it might be the nutrient looks great, there are no deficiencies, you're way overwatering. So let's fix that part of it. Let's continue to feed our plants like we are on schedule to. Let's cut back the watering, or it might be something as simple as give the plant more water. But you might think you can learn that just by visually inspecting the plant, but you will fall short. It's critical that we take tissue samples on a regular basis to determine how our plants are doing, how our root systems are doing, whether we're overwatering, whether we're underwatering, whether we're overwatering or underwatering, whether we're watering correctly, but the water is wrong. I mean, people might be perfect at watering, giving the plant the right amount of water, and it might have an 8.9 pH or a 4.2 pH, which is the equivalent of, let's put battery acid on our plants and see if they'll grow. Whether a plant is pH correct or not will determine a lot in how well the plants produce what we're asking it to produce.
And here again, probably ought to emphasize that if it takes some expense to get that water right, the plant's probably, and the crop is probably worth it, the effort to do that.
Absolutely. And let's test the water. Let's test the water at the point of application. Let's not say, well, we think the water's right. Let's test the plant in 10 days and see if the plant is right. Test your soil, test your water, test the plant. Everything that we can learn about the plant in its life cycle will benefit in the production of the final crop, in the final product that we want to sell. I don't know of any case where we could say it's not worth it to spend the money to test the soil or test the water or test the plant tissue. Let's talk about how critical it is to have the correct pH in the water that you put on the plant.
That's a good point. Most the plants want something that is about 5 or 5.8 to 6.5, right in there. They want it just a little bit acidic. That also works the best to when you're adding water to the products, the applications. That gives you the best miscibility of the product, and when it's applied to the plant, it's going to be the best. The plant's going to take that in easier that way than if you have 8% or 8 pH water. You want to have that water buffered down to just under 6.5 in that area. That's where the plant likes it. It likes things that go easily with the plant. Near neutral, just a little bit acidic. That's the best to make that plant want to take that in and assimilate it and incorporate it into the tissues.
So, is there anything? So now I'm asking you, as you're my nutrient supplier. Is there anything I can do to the water that will help my plant uptake your nutrient better? Some people say surfactant might help. Does that have any impact on what we do?
Well, one of the base ingredients in the program is extraction from mushroom compost. And when we extract that, we get levels of fulvic acid. Not folic acid, fulvic acid and humic acid. The fulvic acid actually acts as a chelate. It's one of the smallest molecules out there, and it will bind up or chelate other nutrients and take them directly into the plant. Fulvic acid is what's produced by microbes. Microbes will consume minerals, solubilize them, and then the plant can drink it. Now typically that happens in the soil. We increase the solubility of those nutrients and add other nutrients to that, and then put them on the plant, and they're absorbed directly into the leaf. So you're correct. It's important to have a fulvic acid or something like that, and fulvic acid is a natural element, and when we put that on that plant, it takes it directly into the plant. Now, if you want to buffer the water, for example, one of the applications that I was involved in last summer, it was about 8.5 pH, and on 100 gallons of water, I was putting in about between a cup and 2 cups of vinegar into 100 gallons. And that buffered that water down to the point where I got better uptake into the plant.
You said plants drink. Well, I've always been taught that plants eat. Is it true that plants drink? How do plants get nutrient?
Plants drink, they don't eat. It has to be soluble in the water for them to take it through the membrane and take it into the plant. Through the root hairs, and the way that typically works, the way it works the best, is there's a colony of microbes that take energy from the plant to live, and they consume the minerals and they solubilize those, and then they feed it back to the plant. So there's a synergistic relationship between a plant and the biology in the soil. And that's the problem we have in our soils here in the United States, probably worldwide, is that we don't have enough of the biologicals, the microbes in there, to do an adequate job. And the reason for that, again, they don't live in high pH soils as well. The environment for replication is not as good as it needs to be, and part of that is because we've over-chemicalized our soils. Every time that you put something that's excess, or something that is detrimental to the replication of those microbes, it slows that down, and we don't have enough. And so that's why in our program we actually use what is produced by microbes, and the fulvic acid, the humic acid, and that fulvic acid does 2 things in nature. It chelates the minerals, because the microbes consume the minerals and then make them available, soluble to the root, to the plant, and it binds up the non-beneficials. So Mother Nature can clean up itself. But when we continually put chemicals and things on that, we continually overwhelm the soil's ability to balance itself out and do what it needs to do. So that is why we work on the soil remediation and increasing those levels, as well as feeding the plant for the current crop. We're trying to fix the soil for the next year's crop and the year after. And over a period of 3 to 5 years, we've had a lot of success in improving that soil. And it all comes down to microbes.
So when we say we're going to water our plants, there's a whole lot more that needs to be directed at our plants than just water. We need to, you could probably do, I'm assuming now that you could do more damage watering incorrectly than you could correctly.
Yeah, any crop. But again, if you've got a hemp crop that you have a potential of so many $1,000s, you know, maybe it's $30,000 an acre potential, and you don't do that correctly, your potential for loss from the potential of that crop is a lot more than $1,000 an acre crop. So the motivation should be to do it right. Get that water correct and the nutrients and do everything correct. We've emphasized that from beginning to end. We are risking the $30,000 an acre or more. Over on this crop, we're risking $1,000 an acre. Where's the motivation to get this right from the beginning to the end?
Well, it looks to me like there are a couple of simple things that if we do correctly. For example, if I water incorrectly, if I put low pH water, if let's say I have, for some reason I have acidic water and it's coming out of it doesn't take that much to get it corrected. My risk reward is, in this case, is kind of askew, because for a little bit of effort, I can mediate that risk. I can fix that risk. I can get my water correct. For a little bit of effort, I can feed my plant correctly. And you can probably tell. Let me ask you this: how long does it take for you to tell that what you're doing to that plant is helping it? Is there a way that you can say, "Oh, let's put this on and give me an hour, give me a day"? Can I test this plant in a day and have it prove that what we're doing is right?
That depends a lot on what the deficiency might be. But we've tested plants, for example, and put some of our foliar feeds on, and you can test for a level of sugar in 30 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes with the refractometer. That's one way to tell scientifically. Typically, depending upon, again, what the deficiency is, sometimes we can see a change in a day, from one day to the next. On the hemp plants, we've done that. You can tell from one day to the next, depending upon the deficiency, and put this on a foliar, the next day you can visually see a difference in the plant.
So I guess to wrap up this whole water segment, then there are a dozen ways we can do it wrong, and there are a couple of ways we can do it correct. And the value of doing it correct, without a whole lot of additional expense or work, will give us great rewards at the end.
The return on investment is very, very critical, and you're exactly right.
And it's easier with water than a lot of the concepts of, if we're doing 12 of these segments, there are 12 concepts to being a successful hemp grower. Water looks like it's one of the easier ones to do right.
Yes, that's very true, and it's worth the effort.